Hi everyone, Mr. Overon here with Mr. Overon's Tarot Reading Services, and today I am going to go through the steps of creating war oil. Now, what war oil is it is a very pungent, powerful oil that can be used in a myriad of different things. It doesn't only have to be used in like negative situations like banishing a neighbor or causing someone to flee or whatever. It could be used in love spells for like you're going to battle for your lover, or you're going to war to protect your lover from another interested party, or that you're fighting for your relationship, any of these things. So it's kind of a dual purposed oil. And so everyone's recipe is going to be a little bit different. It doesn't matter who you are. The recipe is always going to be different. It's all about intent. Now, if you're new to my channel or whatever, witchcraft has a lot of intent-based stuff in it. Meaning that it doesn't matter if you have millions of dollars worth of herbs or whatever else, or you only have like what you have in your kitchen. The intent behind the spell and the procedure and everything else is what is really going to seal the deal at the end of the day. You don't need anything fancy or special. About the only thing that you're going to need is a jar with a lid. This is just a basic ball jar or a cur jar. But anyways, you can pick these up at any store or a thrift store. Usually for a case of them at a store brand new is going to run you about $10 for about this size. If you go to a thrift store, they're anywhere from 25 cents to $1. So really, and you can even reuse like old pasta sauce jars or anything like that. And it doesn't have to be glass. I prefer glass because I just like the way that it looks on the shelf, but I do have plastic bottles as well filled with things. As a matter of fact, here's one of my plastic bottles. I just got this at the Dollar Tree. And it was 3 little bottles with the flip tops and a spray bottle for $1. It just depends. Whatever you happen to have on hand, there's no right or wrong answer. Now, you're going to come across some people who say, no, you have to have this or you have to have that. And honestly, I've been doing this for 30-something years now. And every person that I've ever spoke to, I'll say 98% of the people that I've ever talked to in the witching community have said that it's all about the intent, not the flashy showmanship of it all. So, today I'm going to put together this jar and kind of show you the step-by-steps and what I put into my war oil. So, yeah, let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so getting started, one of the first things that I'm going to add into my war oil is needles. These are just regular everyday push pins. You find them in the crafting section at like Walmart or whatever. I've blessed them and I've said prayers over them. So basically what you wanted to do, the thought behind this is that anyone that decides to come at you negatively, you're going to want them to feel pain. So just grab a couple and drop them in. So the next thing that I'm going to add in is a little bit of black pepper. And there's no special ingredient are like, you know, a tablespoon of this or whatever. You just put until you feel you're good with it. So I did 5 taps of that. Next thing I'm going to do is red pepper flakes. Now, what the black pepper does is it acts as a banishing and a binding agent, and the red pepper the intent for the red pepper is to cause things to heat up for them and not want them to stay around. Now, the other thing, because this is also going to be used in a positive manner, not as a negative thing too. So the black pepper would be to bind the person to you or to banish the person from you. The red pepper flakes will be for stirring up that fiery passion and romance, or it can cause them to want to get out of town quickly, basically. So we added in black pepper and red pepper flakes. Now the next thing I'm going to add in is some cloves. Nice whole cloves. And cloves work in a couple of different ways. They are used in love spells. They're used to like help bring about psychic abilities. They're also used in medicinal purposes to like help soothe and ease pain and things like that. So if you're trying to win a lover back or win an argument or something and you want to just soothe things over, clove is a good thing for that. So because it's a very strong pungent herb, you don't need very much of it. Very little goes a long way. Now you don't have to use whole clove. You could use clove powder. Same with any of the herbs that I'm going to be using. It could be left in whole, or it could be left in, or you could do it in a powder and get it to mix up and emulsiate. I like leaving things in a whole state because I like to look at it in the jar when I shake it up and put my intent and my visualization into it. It's sort of like you shake things up, and then once the sediment settles, you know, that could be like the climax of your argument coming to settling, or, you know, you could just stir things up. The next thing I'm adding in is bay leaves. So I'm just going to put 2 of those in there directly. Now, there's some... During this process, it's completely up to you. You can bless and enchant the jar each time you have placed an herb into it, or you can compound it all together all at the end and do one major blessing over it. Again, it's whatever feels right to you. Now the next one, or the next thing that I'm adding in, is actually a new ingredient for me. I've never used it before, but I've been reading up on it a lot, and it's called Palo Santo. And Palo Santo is Hollywood, not like the movies where the movie stars live or whatever, but the plant holly, and it has a lot of powerful things. Like it basically can do the same thing as what sage can, with blessing, banishing evil or negative energy, any number of different things like that. You can use this in place of a sage wand, or you could use it for smudging. Because I don't need a lot of this, I'm going to try to just whittle a few pieces off into the jar. Sorry, somebody's sending me a text message. So I'm just going to put a few shavings of this in there and try not to kill myself in the process. So there's that. Actually, you know what? I'm probably going to just go ahead and add this whole stick to it. So there's that. I really got turned on to Palo Santo. Honestly, within the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been seeing a lot of witches using it, and I went to a Mexican botanical store, which is where they practice brujeria, which are Santa Paula and voodoo. And I was talking to one of the shopkeepers, and they really recommended it, so that's why I'm using it. The next thing I'm using is salt. Now, this is pink Himalayan salt, and I'm using this because of the pink color to represent love, but at the same time, because it is salt, it will help with banishing, binding, and protection as well. So I'm just going to dump a little bit in here. There we go. Now the next thing that I'm going to add into this, just because I really like the way that it works, is I'm going to add rosemary. So here's just some fresh rosemary that I picked out of the garden. Now, rosemary acts as a protector and as a money drawing herb, and it also works. Let's see, it works for love, money drawing, psychic protection, just regular everyday protection. It's a good binding herb. So there's like a lot of multifaceted things with that. The next thing I'm going to add in is charcoal, and this is a sage wand that I had burned right before starting the video to clear space, and I also want sage, so I'm getting 2 for 1 in this one. So again, I'm just going to cut off some of the sage and the coal that is attached to it. Or maybe I can just crunch it. There we go. Crunching works better. Now, again, some people may say not to use used sage, but this is based on what you have on hand. So I just put some of that in there. Now the next thing I'm going to add, I don't know if this stuff grows anywhere else but here in the state of Washington, but this is called Scotch broom, and it's a noxious weed found here in the Pacific Northwest. And the reason I'm adding it is because there seems to be like a ton of people allergic to it. Now, Scotch broom by itself is used as a diuretic in the past. It helps with like kidney functions and all kinds of other great things. However, if you're not an herbalist or know what you're doing, you can poison yourself using this. So I'm adding this into my jar for the noxious properties, to banish people from my world and stuff like that, because of its pollen and allergen natures. But I'm also adding it because it represents growth and springtime and things like that. And so I also, if you didn't see when I dropped it in here, I'm including a seed pod. So there's 2 seed pods, the whole branch and everything else. What I did is I just went out with a pair of scissors and cut this directly off of a plant and put it into my jar to let it dry out. So we have that as just a general all-around like good, I don't know, just like a good herb. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Let's see. The next thing I'm going to do is add in some, I'm going to add in 1 star anise. Now, this I'm adding in solely as a representational magic. So there's a star anise pod, and because it's the star shape, it's going to work as a protection as well as a binder. So this is solely for representational. But star anise has a black licorice smell, like a tar black licorice smell, more black licorice than tar, but I associate the two smells because, well, tar makes me very it makes me very sick whenever I'm near it or around it, and so yeah, I'm just adding that in to like give it some more oomph. That's a technical term, mind you, oomph. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to add in is a splash of dragon's blood. Now this is dragon's blood made from the dragon blood resin. They make ink out of it as well, and that is good for representational magic, writing sigils, and adding a layer of protection to your spells and stuff. Just a few little drops. It's precious, powerful stuff. So, got that all added in. And also, because it is dragon's blood, this gives it dragon power properties. Dragons, as you know from mythology and storybooks and stuff like that, they're fierce, they're sometimes fire breathing, so you always think of them as like guarding a treasure, or just a ferocity that you don't want to really mess with or deal with. And so I want to put that in there. Now, on the flip side of that, dragons were also said to be extremely loyal and very loving and caring, and have all these mystical, magical properties as well. So, again, because this is going to be a dual-layered spell oil for both negative and positive workings, I'm trying to add a lot of neutral items that can go one way or the other. Okay. I'm sorry, I thought I had everything laid out right where I needed it. The next item I'm going to add, if I can find it in my stores, is black salt. Now, black salt is jinx removing, keeping away bad energy, keeping away bad neighbors, banishing, binding, also protection, and things like that. So, you're going to want to use this. I use it kind of sparingly because I found in the past that it's been pretty potent and very powerful. So I'm just going to tap in like less than maybe half a teaspoonful. So there we go. That might have been a full teaspoon. So half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon if you're trying to keep measure of what I'm putting in here. Now, also, because I'm going to be using this in a positive manner, I'm going to add 1 whole nutmeg. Now, whole nutmeg like this is said to... Sorry, somebody decided not to get their muffler changed or something, but... so anyways, whole nutmeg like this is said to bring about prosperity, love, and also add protection and other things like that. So love, prosperity, protection, wealth, the whole 9 yards. So if you were using this war oil in financial gains, like okay, you would use it for going against your bills. So you're at war with your bills. So add in 1 whole nutmeg. Again, you don't have to have these ingredients on hand. It's whatever you feel you want to put in there or what should be in there. Okay, and I got some lavender that I picked fresh, and I'm going to add in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole lavender pod flowers. Lavender works for protection, love, psychic energies, banishing, and just bringing people together. To all of this now, I'm also going to add some essential oils. So the first essential oil that I'm going to add is 5 drops of tea tree oil. Now, tea tree oil on its own is freaking amazing. I use this stuff for everything. If I get a cut, I will put this directly on the cut. It works as an antiseptic. It has healing properties. If you have a very bad cut that has required stitches, mixing tea tree oil and coconut oil together and applying it directly to the wound really helps it. The other thing, well, it's tea tree oil, coconut oil, and raw beeswax that helps heal things up real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops. So I didn't mean to get all that in there, but you know what? That's how much it needed to have in there. The next one I'm going to do is cedar wood. This one I'm going to make really good sure that it only gets a few drops. Now, cedar wood is used for banishing, binding, protection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And it also works the same as sage. Matter of fact, northern Indians, like in the Pacific Northwest, would use cedar a lot of times in place of sage. So it has that same kind of properties for banishing and blessing. And because this is a dual jar, that's what I'm going to do. The next essential oil I'm going to use is orange oil. This is pure 100% orange oil from Now Essential Oils. And this will give it a sweet fragrance. I always associate orange oil with springtime and happiness and prosperity and blessings. And I also like to use it as a way to kind of invite things into my life. So I'm only going to use a few drops of this. The other thing that orange oil can be used for is banishing and getting rid of negative energies and just bringing in a whole new level of clarity and cleanliness. If you've ever used orange oil to clean with, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about how strong and powerful it is. Now, this is a completely I can't even think of the word, but this is like a completely optional ingredient. I just so happen to have some snake skin, and this is the head of the snake. Right there is the eye. I don't know if you can see that really well or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and snip off a little bit of that skin, and add that in there. Now, for people who haven't seen or been around snakes too often, the serpent is a very powerful symbol. And it represents both good and bad in the world. With me adding this into this, think of a boa constrictor wrapping around your enemy and squeezing the life out of them. For protection, imagine it coiling around, say that it's coiling around you and your loved ones, ready to strike and protect you. So, a lot of different powers coming from the snake. So that's, I have like a 7-foot piece of boa constrictor skin. And so that's just one of the things that I really love to use in my, like, potions and stuff like that, where I really need to make it extremely potent for protection and what have you. The next thing I'm going to add, it's not a herb. It's actually some green twine. I'm not quite sure how to help you with that. Stop! For whatever reason, my Amazon dot decided to pick up, but I'm going to use some green twine. Now, the reason I'm using green twine is because I'm going to use this as a money drawing thing, but I'm also using it to represent binding and banishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie a little knot in there for representational magic and add that right in. Again, this is stuff that I have on hand, and I'm a very big believer of intent magic. The last ingredient that I am going to add into this is just a little bit of red wine that I happen to have in this little thing here. And what the red wine is going to do is it's going to sweeten and bind things, but it's also going to have the effects of the alcohol of getting somebody drunk and making them disoriented and not able to make good decisions. So I'm just going to add a little splash of that into here. Okay. And there we have it. We have our... Oh, no, there's one more. I'm glad I just saw this. One more ingredient that I'm going to add to our... to my oil here, and this is just a used key. Doesn't have to be anything special or fancy, but you have to make sure that it is a used key, because it has the energy of opening and closing locks, being lost, and so on and so forth. So this again is going to be representational magic. This is going to be locking out or unlocking doors, locking doors to keep people from coming into my life, or like getting them out the door and locking it behind them, you know, everything like that. So it could be gold or silver. This one happens to be silver. And there you are. Now, what you want to do is you want to empower and consecrate your jar. And what you're doing, if you're new to enchanting and consecrating things, you're just going to spend a moment praying over this to whatever god or goddess you happen to follow, and just put all of your intent of all the different things that you want it to work for, like banishing neighbors, getting rid of negative energy, bringing love, fighting for your relationship, opening locks, closing doors, whatever. And then after you've put all of your intent into your jar, what I like to do is I like to make a little spiral with my finger, going in a clockwise direction 3 times, and then stop. And because this is also a banishing jar, put your hand on top of it and think of you pushing down all of that energy into the jar, and then do 3 anti-clockwise spirals and then push that down. So what the clockwise spiral and the non-clockwise spirals do is non-clockwise pushes things away from you, clockwise brings them into you. And to finish it all off, what I'm going to use is some extra virgin olive oil, 100%. So this is a pretty big jar. It's probably going to take all of this plus another jar or plus another bottle of olive oil. But again, this is all stuff that I had on hand, and you're just going to want to fill it all the way up. No, Palo Santo, you cannot leave us. But I will use you to stir everything up with. Okay, Palo Santo does not like being in there. So now that we have it all set up, I would give this at least a month to soak and get everything all situated. You may even want to leave it out under the full moon for one full moon cycle, and then use it out during the dark of the moon. That's just a suggestion, not something that is set in stone or whatever, but there you are. There's all of our ingredients. And then just give it a good shake, make sure everything gets all shook up, and there you are. Now if you needed to, it's not suggested, but if you absolutely needed to, like you forgot something, you could put it into this oil, but as it is right now, it is completely done. And so once you've sealed it, you really shouldn't unseal it again until you're ready to use it. Again, for me, I like to wait until the first full moon, or yeah, the first full moon after I've created that, my new batch of oil. Because there's a lot of ingredients in here, you really don't have to throw them all out and start all over again. You can just go ahead and reuse this oil, or fill this back up with oil probably another 6 or 7 times before I would really change everything out. So if you made this, say, in January, you should probably throw it out by that following February of the February of the following year if you haven't used it all the way. But you should be able to get quite a bit of usage. Now, to use this, if it was on a neighbor or something like that, you would just sprinkle a little bit of the oil around their property or across their doorstep or something like that. Get yourself an eyedropper and just put a few drops here or there. Put it on their mailbox, put it in front of their, or on their car, wherever you gotta go. If you're doing this for protection on your home, I would put at least 3 drops in every window seal. Like one on the, say that this is the window seal. Put one here, and put one here. So it would be like one side of the window, the middle of the window, and then the end. If you're doing it across the doorway, do it the full length of the door, like a drop every couple of inches. And if you're doing it to bring back a lover or something like that, I would put like a drop in each of their, like one drop in each shoe or something like that. Basically, any way that you want to use this is how you're going to use it, and it's going to be a very powerful, potent thing in your life. So there you have it. So sorry about the lengthy process of talking to you guys about it, but as you see, there was a lot of things that I put into it. Again, this is all about you. What you want to put into it is what you are going to put into it. It doesn't have to be anything special or fancy. You can do representational magic. If you don't have any herbs or anything like that, write it out on a piece of paper and tie it up with some black thread or whatever, stick it in there, put your oil in there. You could use water if you wanted to. I personally like to use the oil because I feel it gets more concentrated, and with having a lot of those herbs and stuff in there, the oil may not last as long, and same thing with the water, it could go a little bit rancid, so it just really depends. Again, do what you feel is right. For me, I felt the avocado oil was going to be good. So there it is. Questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section down below, or shoot me an email at mroveron@gmail.com. That's MROVERON@gmail.com. And if you would like a spell or a reading done, please check out www.mroveron.com. And I will talk to you all later, my little witchies. Bye.